Good morning. My name's Eric Myers. I'm the Executive Director of the Chattanooga Design Studio. Thank you for being here. Thank you for attending the Chat En Route Transit Stop Design Challenge presentation. And I just advanced slides that I didn't want to, excuse me. So I'm kicking off the presentation this morning really to kind of give a little bit of background about where the birth of this design challenge began. And I want to let you know that in 2018, the Enterprise Center launched the Innovation District Master Plan, and out of that 2018 plan, there were several values that were established in the Innovation District and what the value of the Innovation District could be for our community. And those values included digital equity and inclusion, public space and public space inclusion. And we felt like at the Chattanooga Design Studio as an urban design nonprofit that the public space advancement really of our city fell core into our mission. And we squarely adopted that mission and carried that forward. And what we did immediately in 2019 was a public realm action plan. The public realm action plan included several very large stages, of which one included about 70 volunteers that linked in with the Chattanooga Design Studio to perform the first ever in Chattanooga public space, public life survey. And what happened with that were several volunteers went around this 13-block district recording what people were doing, where they were moving, where they were staying. And what we found out from that survey was that bus stops were some of the most vibrantly active places in the Innovation District. And the porch at Patton Towers were some of the most social and active places in the Innovation District. So we've squarely put a footprint in trying to figure out and trying to test and pilot this idea of a hackable city. How can we all work together to innovate and pilot and engage one another in testing ideas and refining ideas? I often remind folks, when you think about it, this little device that we all depend on so much now, these smart devices that seem to, in a way, guide our lives, they were piloted and tested several times before they were ever put onto market and put into your hands. And so the question is, how could we do that in the public realm? How could we challenge the traditional way of doing this where engineers, architects, landscape architects spend 2 years on paper in rooms in their offices doing this work, never necessarily getting out into the public, but spend it on paper and then really, in a way, take a gamble on building that work in the public realm to see if it's going to make an effect on people's quality of life. Why not get out into that public space and test and refine what could make benefit to someone's public life? And so that's what this is about. That's what this design challenge is about. It's born in an idea of piloting and testing and refining together. And I'm really pleased to have 2 very qualified local teams submitted that have a multidisciplinary approach to their process. And I'm really proud that we're here today to share those with you. That's our primary effort today, to share those ideas with you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Christina to introduce our committee and a little bit about the design teams. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the Enterprise Center. Thank you to CARTA. And thank you very much to the Downtown Alliance for your support. We appreciate it very much.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Christina Gibson. For those of you I haven't met, I work at the Design Studio. And I'm going to just I just want to give a shout out and thank you to the steering committee members who have been a part of this design challenge and selecting the team submissions and reviewing, sort of doing a mid-review, a mid-design challenge review with the teams. And they're here today to sort of give some feedback and help facilitate a conversation after we see these designs. So I want to thank the Enterprise Center, Kevin Love, and Deb Sosha. I also want to thank CARTA. We have Veronica Peebles on our committee from CARTA. And so those have been really important sponsors and partners in this, as well as Steve Brooks from the Downtown Chattanooga Alliance. And Courtney Brown is here as a local artist and transit advocate, as well as Josue Carrillo, who is also a transit advocate and photographer here in Chattanooga. So thank you to the steering committee, thank you to the design teams, and we're gonna get into the presentations. We're gonna spend about 20 minutes or so hearing from the design teams, and then we'll have some time afterwards for Q&A, so please hold your questions, and definitely wanna hear questions and feedback and have a community conversation about the intersection of transit with public space design. So we will hand it off to the first team. We have Stephanie Loggins, Ray Padrone, and Aaron Cole. Let's welcome them.
Thank you all for coming. Again, reiterate, Chattanooga Design Studio, Enterprise Center, CARTA, the steering committee members, the other artist group. We appreciate the opportunity. It's been a really cool project. We're all very interested in, continuing to improve the quality of our city. And when the bus stop challenge, transit stop challenge came up, we were all very excited about this because we understand kind of the importance that those spaces play. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through our beginning thought process. The steering committee members have seen some of this beginning slideshow as we thought about what the bus stop could be. We wanted, taken from that initial question, which was to render the experience of using public transit as pleasant and dignified. That was kind of our jumping off point. Like that's the point of this project. Have bus stops that people can use and be comfortable and feel like they're valued and they're. So we talked about claiming space. A bus stop that says I'm here. It's not off in the corner. It's not a signpost that maybe you miss as you walk by or drive by. That was our goal. And then just the idea of the right to be right here. Waiting on the bus, making riding the bus a legitimate and viable form of transportation in Chattanooga, trying to push against a car-centric culture. So we thought of kind of the bus stop and the right to be there that speaks outwardly. So the bus stop is speaking out to a greater community through elements like the roof, the seating, those kind of things that show the bus stop as being a place on the urban landscape. And then people are invited to come in and take a spot in that bus stop, right? To be able to walk up and know where the information is, to have a comfortable place to sit, to wait on the bus. That was kind of the idea. So seating, vertical elements that serve as windbreak and information, horizontal elements that shade you from the sun, shelter you from the rain. Oh. So we had two spots. Our stops are both on Macaulay Avenue. Warner Park stop right there, essentially at the intersection where Spruce Street dies in. So between Holtzclaw and the bridge. We really like that spot. It's very visible. It's on a high, speed street, a lot of traffic. There's also a very interesting kind of coincidence going on right now that the wall that sort of blocks the retaining pond of Warner Park is knocked down. Maybe somebody drove through it or something like that. But behind that wall are like 3 or 4 really nice trees. When we were walking around there, it's like, oh, this is a great place to just hang out. It's grass, it's flat. So we really like that spot, and we hope to incorporate that in our design, and we will get to that real shortly. The other site is UTC Greenway, so up the hill, again on Macaulay, where the Greenway crosses campus just up from Yellow Deli. There, again, a spot that's very different from the Warner Park site. The traffic, we're down to 2-lane road. There's a median in the middle of the road right there. It's a very calm street by now. There's lots of traffic, lots of campus traffic walking back and forth. And a lot of people moving up and down the street. So very different in terms of the environment and the feel of the street right there. So it was an interesting way for us to test essentially one design, how it would deploy in 2 different scenarios. And then we really want to think about the idea that what we build and how we build says something about what we care about in our value system. So we're thinking about time and ecology, building something that has as minimal impact as possible on the environment and also speaks to the place. So when we were thinking about information and using the bus stop to spread information, it's not just about the bus route, the time the bus is going to get here, but also using it as potentially markers. This thing happened here at this time in the past. This is here. Warner Park, for example. Here at this bus stop is a water park and a zoo and all of these kind of things. So using them to mark amenities and acknowledge the past. The present, we're thinking about very specifically the bus stop, the act of waiting on the bus, what you're doing right then. The bus will be here at this time and it's going to take me to these places. And then thinking about the future, what is taking transit, what does that mean for us moving forward? So using it as a way to share information. When you ride the bus, when you take transit, or you walk, you're making these impacts on our city and our environment. So we talked a lot, and we go through, I'm going to kind of go through these quickly so I can get to the design, just kind of iterating the ideas of how we cover this thing, how we orient seating, lots of different kind of concepts of the idea of vertical post and horizontal roof. We experimented with lots of different ideas, and we came to this. This is kind of our final design, and I'll go through this. These are the main design concepts that stood out for us. Claiming physical space for the bus stop by having a scale, significant enough size that people see it, they recognize it, and they know that it's a bus stop. Claiming psychological space for the bus stop by being beautiful and well constructed. A thing that is beautiful, well constructed, that users feel like is valuable. They're valuable because this was built and it was nice. And it's also beautiful and people take pride in it, in their neighborhood, in their community. A dignified and safe space. So, as we talked through this, we thought about the main key of this is a comfortable place to be for 15, 20 minutes as you wait on the bus. It's not where you want to be. You're between places. You're not at home. You're not to work. You're not to your destination. So you're in between places, and we wanted to try to make that as comfortable and pleasant experience as possible. And, a restful place. You're taking the bus home from work. You're on your way to work. It needs to be restful. And then to integrate the stops themselves with the sidewalk, not pushing them to a corner, not separating, but saying the sidewalk goes through the bus stop. The bus stop is on the sidewalk. If you're waiting on the bus, you're part of the sidewalk. If you're walking and it's raining, you can stop. You don't have to get on the bus. That kind of thing, that sort of idea, making it part of the urban environment and not a separate place. And this is kind of the components of the basic bus stop. So we thought of one singular piece that we can then deploy in multiple arrangements. It is a canopy on top that is a shelter from the rain. We like these. We have vertical metal fins that provide shade and act as sort of a tree canopy, right? Underneath a tree, you get sunlight, but it's dappled. It's not harsh. We like that idea. We also get kind of a drip edge, a way for the water to sort of disperse in a slow fashion. The difference between getting dripped on and getting, sprayed with a water hose is a very different kind of experience. Opportunity to put solar panels on top to power lighting, power phone chargers, those kind of things that are helpful to make it safe and convenient. One of the big things that came up from the steering committee and from hearing from Carter was that phone chargers are a big request a lot of times by the users, a place to, just keep up with what's going on and make sure your phone is working and those kind of things. The trunk of the tree, the bus stop is that vertical piece that holds the roof up, but also we can hide the power, have that phone charging station. And then the horizontal fins, which are the places to block the wind and display. And then this idea of these bench seats that can be these little plus and X signs that can be kind of deployed across the environment. So one of the big things we thought about was like when you come up to a bus stop, if there's 2 or 3 people there, maybe you want to be 5 feet away. Maybe you want to be right next to somebody. It just depends. So allowing people to engage in the way they feel comfortable and get as close as they want. The idea that you can sit on the bench or maybe you just want to lean on it. Different ways of kind of using those bench seats to make your experience comfortable. A couple of quick sketches we had about how this thing can be used. You see information, you can see art on those fins. Another opportunity maybe to do some planting and incorporating living green space in these bus stops. So here's our layout for the Warner Park station. Right here, just before you get to the turn lane for Warner Park. So we've got a cluster of these things, 3 or 4 of these, that will make kind of a grove of trees, mimicking the larger grove of trees. And we would kind of encourage, a reconfiguration of that fence so people can go back there and sit. If you know it's going to be 20 minutes for your bus, maybe you can go back there and eat your sandwich in the grass or something like that. And that's kind of the idea for Warner Park. Again, here's one image of it as you're standing on the sidewalk. So you see this as you walk up, you see people waiting, kind of taking as much or little space as they want, and engaging with it in a way they feel comfortable with. Another from the kind of street view, you can see in there an opportunity inside that grove of trees behind the wall to let people spread out. The UTC spot, again, taking up less space in this environment because it's a smaller space. One of the things we were really trying to be conscious of is some bus stops in downtown, for example, or at Warner Park, there's lots of space and these need to be big. And in some places in a neighborhood, you have a 5-foot sidewalk. There's not a lot of room to put a lot of things. Maybe you can just get one of these that's just a little less intrusive, that fits in the sidewalk itself, but does provide a little shade and a little bit of announcement that here's the bus stop. And then here again, that opportunity for the bus stop to serve as a node of rest for pedestrians and riders. As you're walking through, you kind of engage with that in different ways. This spot being a highly pedestrian area where Warner Park is not, makes it helped us sort of test our idea and see if it would work in multiple kind of environments. And then this is the view kind of as you're crossing Macaulay. You see, that great kind of lawn situation with the trees, Yellow Deli there, and all the buildings that kind of surround it. Right behind you as you're walking up is down the hill. So just a great little spot for multiple activities to go on. And then, here's just sort of acknowledgement of how we can use those information panels, past, present, and future. Future being, information about the smart choice, the good choice, the right choice being transit. Also an opportunity to display art, maybe in a very similar way to the way the transformers, the power boxes are being used. An opportunity to roll out art as you deploy these into neighborhoods. Excuse me. Present situation, bus map, routes and times, also amenities. Hey, there's the playground at Warner Park is at this stop. Those kind of things. And that's the end of our presentation. Ray, Stephanie, you have anything you guys want to add before we? Awesome.
I did want to add that those verticals, the art display option, is designed so that you could do a vinyl wrap on one of those aluminum boards and they could travel from bus stop to bus stop. One thing that was brought up during our midpoint review was that it could be cool to have a kind of like art exhibition that moves around the city. So that's an option with those.
Cool. We'll open it up to questions if anyone has any. Yeah, we certainly envision this as you take a specific installation and go, okay, this is west facing, we can angle these things to provide that best sort of sun, and specifically tailor it to the location and what side of the street it's on, which way it's facing. In the UTC example, the Greenway, there's lots of trees, there's a lot of shade there already. Warner Park, there's none really at that bus stop. So we can tailor it to specific needs of that site for sure by angling it, making it a little bigger, a little smaller. Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to repeat the question
Oh,
in the mic for the video and for everyone. So yeah, we'll take the next question.
Sarah? Hey, Sarah.
So in y'all's study of the city and choosing locations, did you think, or did y'all get on, and this might be part of the larger project, I have two questions. So the first one is like, big picture citywide frequency. So how many there are within a certain like, radius or like certain distance or block length or something like that, closer to the inner city and then as you move out. Did y'all see any trends or any recommendations that there should be more so like as development comes along in our city and we have streetscape required, every so often there should then be installation of a new bus stop, whether it's now or later, it's then available, it's built. So
You can repeat it.
y'all saw or came to as good recommendations in that regard.
Yeah. The question was the thought process about expanding these and adding them as city develops. First of all, the sites were given to us, so we didn't really, it's fine. Maybe Christina or Eric can speak to those specific sites, but the 4 sites, our 2 sites and the 2 sites were given to us. But I do think your comment about essentially how we plan the bus stops in the future needs to be brought into the greater urban development strategy. Same way street trees and sidewalks are made, bus stops, we need to know, okay, this doesn't need a stop because there's a stop right there, but this one doesn't. I think that's certainly something that the city needs to think about as our planning structures grow. Absolutely.
The second part of that question is, will this result in maybe a style book so that that is scheduled into planning and development processes and required by city code somehow?
Right.
Then there's a style book that we can then distribute. So do you think that this will then result in that? Maybe I'm hitting on further down the line.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. And you're going to see, so the next group, their bus stop is, although it addresses a lot of the very same issues, they address them in a very different way physically. And I think theirs is very appropriate for their sites. They're very, and I think there's an opportunity to have multiple options that maybe a neighborhood could choose from, or the physical environment could dictate different sort of things. I think that would be an awesome way to do it. And I think having these things sitting in a city, warehouse somewhere that can be brought out and set down as development comes along would be a fantastic idea, for sure. Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Thank you. The first question was about adding sculpture, the possibility to include more sculpture in the bus stops. And the construction of those seats, we actually last night were running through this, and I'm going to let Ray and Stephanie, Ray's a sculptor and Stephanie's a craftsperson and artist. They can both talk to the sculpture aspect of this a little bit better. So when you guys want to talk about sculpture and art and the sidewalks.
Sure, you talk about sculpture, I'll talk about the seats.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Or I can do it, it's fine. You want me to do it?
Thinking about this just on my own, we hadn't discussed it, I had some ideas. But in terms of what we discussed.
Share your
Go
ideas.
ahead.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. I do think that, keep doing this. I do think that those support structures, those columns are very bare, and there could be an opportunity for a more structural support in the center, a more sculptural support in the center. It doesn't have to be that dressed down in order to still work. So that could be an option if people really wanted to incorporate and commission for a particular spot. Then you could have a competition. You could bring people in, put out a request for proposals from artists. I think there are a lot of opportunities for CARTA to partner with different communities for their specific needs, or arrange things like construction and maintenance of certain bus stops in certain areas based on what the community needs. So this is clean enough and reduced enough to where there will be an option to elaborate on it in that way.
Yeah. Thinking about that more, I think it would really need to be in collaboration with that canopy, though. It's just such a strong visual element. To have a sculpture that close to something that outstanding, right? You would need to be really considered. As far as the seating, like yesterday we were talking, I think there'd be, working through every detail of fabrication on those. I think there's a lot of different options. One of which could definitely be, if you were to take that plus sign and essentially cut it and slat it, right? So breaking it open, creating a airflow, right? It would also help with not collecting water, things like that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right. So, I mean, that's a really hard thing. Rain is a hard thing to do because rain doesn't just fall down, right? A hard driving rain is going to come in. We really struggled with that as we looked early on, how to protect it from the rain without it being an enclosed box, right? The best thing to do if we're looking at rain is just put a glass box around it and you go inside. But we all kind of know now what being inside a small enclosed area with multiple people, there's problems with that. So we essentially, we want to drop the canopy as low as we can, so you can walk under it but still protect. We want to use those vertical fins to block some of the wind. We do acknowledge that rain is really kind of challenging, and a hard, really downpour rain, we may get wet. But we also think if you've walked up to the bus stop, you've already dealt with that, and maybe it's a raincoat, maybe it's an umbrella. It's a hard challenge, and we certainly haven't solved that thing completely on this design. But certainly as I thought through it, I think shade from the sun is a harsher and more immediate problem than rain. It doesn't rain every day. It is hot and sunny a lot of days. So we went more for shade and less for protection from the rain, and acknowledging that we're maybe not protecting everybody from the rain.
Yeah, I would describe it as a balance, right? Like we're trying to balance the openness and flexibility of the space with rain cover. I mean, if you look at the Warner Park one in particular, excuse me, the canopy grows in size well enough to, I think, would provide ample coverage. You can find a spot within there to avoid the rain. That's going to be a situation where you're probably going to end up closer to somebody else, and that's fine.
I'd like to add, I also think there's an opportunity in those spots where you maybe just have, like at the Greenway, a couple of individual ones, that you could have another vertical informational panel with a half canopy over it. You could still find a way to get that more subdued tiered effect from the canopies to kind of help with that coverage from the rain in certain circumstances.
you have a question? First of all, there's nothing sort of set in stone about this. This is, oh, yes, sorry. The question was, are these designs finalized what's going to be at those sites? And the answer is no. This is just ideas at this point. The next step will be for Design Studio, Enterprise Center, CARTA to evaluate this and move forward. So none of this is set to be built. Do acknowledge, and we tried to, by dispersing the seating, we would like to make sure we leave spot under the canopy that someone in a wheelchair can pull up. So we do want to provide space for that by not just putting benches completely under the canopy. We would like to leave some open spots underneath for people in wheelchairs. Yes, ma'am. I mean, ramps at the curb cuts would be part of it. We also don't have any level change, so all of our bus stop design is just on the sidewalk. So you won't have to roll up into anything or on anything, or no curbs, none of that sort of stuff like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, can I make a clarifying point?
Yeah.
To that, we really focused on designing the elements as they asked for a kit of parts that could be used in many different ways as required by the site. So those elements, you can imagine them higher or lower. You can imagine them scattered out more, or kind of the way we've got the models set up on the table. They can be thought of as flexible to the needs of a community and to the particular site.
Right, you could have a canopy and no benches, for example, if there was a spot that had a wall, a site wall, that provided seating. There's lots of opportunities to piece and part the theme. Yes? Yeah, so we thought through the benches. We thought about them being able to range from a one-person seat to a multiple-person seat, depending on the location. We thought about steel. We thought about concrete. Talking about maybe if we slat them and separate them out, because we did acknowledge a steel bench in the sun is going to be terribly hot to sit on. Nobody's going to sit on it. It could collect rain. So we did think about that, and they're able to kind of increase or decrease depending on the use of the site and the physical space that we have. So we did have a couple of different options of that, and the possibility to expand and contract the size as we need to. No, right now the benches are kind of freestanding pieces, yeah. Any other questions? John, you got a question? Okay, well, I guess we'll hand it over to Christina. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, y'all. We are going to just make a quick transition to the next group. And so if you need to grab a refill of your coffee or whatever, just take a second to do that, and then we'll jump into the next design presentation. All right, we are going to welcome the next design team. We have Lauren Arledge and Brad Stringer and Richard Foster. They're going to introduce themselves, but let's welcome the next design team.
Hey there, good morning. Thank you all for coming out today. My name's Lauren Arledge, and we've got Brad Stringer. We're both from Croy Engineering here in Chattanooga, and then this is Richard Foster. He is a local artist. He's a woodworker, and he makes really beautiful kaleidoscope pieces. So we are super excited about the CHATT en route Transit Stop Design Challenge, and we've really enjoyed working on this, getting some feedback from stakeholders, and now we're going to share with you our concepts. So I'm just going to really quickly walk you through our site analysis. We did transit experience. We rode the bus around to our sites around town, and one thing we immediately noticed is that the CARTA shuttle stops and the regular CARTA bus stops are two separate things, so we were confused by that. The shuttle stops are more formal typically than the actual bus stops. Google also doesn't know the difference. So Google will tell you, go to the shuttle stop, you will be picked up by the bus. No. But you can take the shuttle to the bus stop, which is great. We didn't know that immediately, but we figured it out later. Here we are at Food City. This is in St. Elmo. It's just off Tennessee Avenue. And right here you can see this linear strip. That is the bus stop that's there right now. It's right next to this car wash. And initially, we thought we were going to be designing for a site right down at the bottom of the hill on Tennessee Avenue next to the Cat Cafe. When we took the bus over there, though, it didn't stop down there at all. It stopped up next to the shopping center, which is great, and it should stop next to the shopping center because that's where people are with their bags. So we brought that information back, went over it with the design studio, and we determined that designing at the top of the hill was going to be the best place for this to go for ease of use. At the Park Ridge site, the current transit stop is right on the road, really, really close. The only separation between you and the road is a tiny 5-foot sidewalk. It's intense right there. And that's a busy road, too. It's right on McCauley. There's a fence and a trash receptacle, but other than that, it is very bare bones, just typical transit shelter. And you're also right next to this parking lot. You do have some really nice existing trees there, though, which is great. So there, you just kind of get a sense of how close you are to everything. So initially for our design moves, we want to incorporate things like public art, providing simple conveniences like Wi-Fi and charging stations for phones, space for multimodal transportation, Chattanooga e-bike docks and bike racks, flexible seating options and landscape improvements, and then enhanced safety measures like setbacks and lighting. This is just an initial sketch I did showing some different kinds of flexible seating options, maybe incorporating some interesting artistic panels, showing a solar panel up on top. The structure is mostly open, but it's definitely covered. And this one we were thinking about the Park Ridge site kind of in mind, but these have evolved since these initial concepts, and you'll see what we've ended up with. And these are some examples of Richard's amazing kaleidoscopes that he does. First, we're going to talk about the Food City site here, and you can see the long peninsula of land. That's our focus area. You've got the property line going right there, so we were kind of using that as our constraint. We didn't want to get into the car wash at all. We also noted when we were there that Ben Miller Park, which is a nice city park, is down to the southeast, and also there's a community center over there. So that's an important adjacency we wanted to take into consideration. And here is our layout plan. I'm going to go really quickly to the perspective, and I'll come right back to this. This is our transit stop at Food City. And I wanted to show you this first because looking at something in plan versus looking at something in perspective and getting a sense of the site are very different things. So these are modular shelters. They are all covered. They have a couple different types of wall panels that you can use. They're all, the ones that are more solid are actually slatted, so they allow for airflow and also light to filter throughout. We've got some plexiglass or glass panels also that could potentially have some of Richard's kaleidoscopic elements incorporated into them. We've got open air wall panels also to allow for airflow, circulation, and clear sight lines throughout. Incorporating a lot of vegetation in the site is really important because A lot of these places throughout the city are in these urban heat island areas, so it gets really hot there, so you want to make sure there's a lot of green coverage to kind of offset those effects. We've left a portion of the site open just to give some plaza space and milling about. Something that was important for us was to really take into account all the different kinds of users. I'm thinking people commuting to work, students commuting to school, parents with their kids, people going to the grocery store. Bottom line is, people spend a good chunk of their time at these transit stops each week, so they need to really be comfortable, safe, convenient, and enjoyable places to be. I think specifically in regard to the kid aspect, you need to have space for little bodies to run around and little hands to explore and move. So that's kind of where the kaleidoscopes come in to provide these like little moments of wonder in these spaces. So having space to move around freely. Another big design move is to keep at least 5-foot clear width throughout the whole thing, to have really clear circulation throughout the whole thing. We want it to be accessible for all types of users inside the structures. So those are all the covered structures. Inside those, the wood look elements are tables and benches. With the benches that are internal to those, I envision them folding up or down if it's needed to create more space if it's a really busy day. There's also some surface-mounted bar-style seating, different types of tabletop options for those commuters who are going to school or work, who need to spread out and are maybe working on a group project together. The Wi-Fi and the charging are going to seamlessly let you get off the bus and remain connected if you have an important presentation that you're working on, so you can keep the work going strong. We came at it with a pocket park approach, so you want them to be for people who maybe you're not even there to use the bus. Maybe you've been in the shopping center and you are hungry and you want to come have lunch over here. We've got different places for you to do that. And then we've shown the multimodal. We've got the Chattanooga e-bike station and then some bike racks as well if you needed to take your bike there and wanted to lock it up for a couple hours. And then we've added a speed table to help slow down traffic and also provide some visual cues for motorists that this is pedestrian space and you need to be aware. We provided a sidewalk that connects down to the park too, so if you're a mom with your stroller, it's going to be easier for you to get out of the park and up to our bus stop. All right. This shows how movement works through our site. And now looking quickly at the Park Ridge site, you've got Park Ridge Medical Center to the northeast. You've got the Ridgedale neighborhood to the southwest. Highland Park's also over there. Just some commercial stuff across the street. And then the very trafficked Macaulay Avenue. I'm going to very quickly show you this perspective as well. So our transit shelter here, we've actually got two different ones. We've got one that's the 16 by 16 square, and then we've got another one that's a 20 by 8 more linear version. Once again, they've got the slats that allow for light filtration and breathability through covered roofs. We've got some nice concrete planters that are also going to help strengthen the space, the surface-mounted seating out front, along with some enhanced paving to help break up the visual field. The Chattanooga e-bikes, the bike racks, and then the flexible table and seating options inside the building. This one we're showing another one of Richard's kaleidoscope designs. That one is like on the plexiglass panels, they give like a stained glass effect, and just a little bit of a whimsical element to the design. All right. So this big red arrow here, I imagine that there is likely some foot traffic coming from Ridgedale over this way to get to the bus stop. So we're proposing doing a pedestrian crosswalk there with a hawk signal, if that seems appropriate, to help people cross the street more quickly. That's a mid-block crossing. Over here, we're taking over 4 parking spaces from Park Ridge. What that's going to do is allow some separation from the road. You're kind of buffered even further by having the bike share hub right there between the sidewalk and the structure. And then on the other side of that, you've got the open plaza with the surface-mounted bench seating. We're trying to retain as many trees as possible. We actually took out 1 in order to get our little plaza space. But you've got a nice clear line from Park Ridge straight down to Macaulay, so you can see what's going on with the bus. You can see this is absolutely the route you need to take to get over to the bus stop. We've got a speed table back there, once again, to help visual cues and traffic flow. Inside the structures, once again with the flexible seating options, in the corner of the one on the western edge, there's like a little dining level table, great for little bodies to play around on. Might even want to do a surface-mounted kaleidoscope housing there. But once again, these are fully wired and powered for connectivity and working. Movement through the site, lots of clear sight lines, lots of ease of use to get around. So, kit of parts, slatted wall panels, open access points, plexiglass with kaleidoscope elements. For the roof on these, you could either do a full solid roof or there's something called a louvered roof. And since these buildings are powered, this could be something really interesting to explore. That means the roof would be slatted, and when inclement weather strikes, it closes on its own. There's not even a human that needs to be involved to make that happen. It's just something that could happen. The technology exists. Fold away and surface mounted seating, so flexible. Some of it is going to be more flexible than others. Obviously, you don't want stuff to walk away, so it is all mounted to the building, but some of it is more movable than the others. Shelves and hooks for coats and bags. If you want to get your stuff up off the ground, nobody likes to have their stuff sitting on the ground. Inline peninsula tables, bar top height, dining height also, so different users can use them. And then solar storage capable, fully wired for lighting and device charging and Wi-Fi. So that's just the shelter. Hardscape and softscape, surface-mounted tables and benches with natural stone veneer, something like a sandstone or a limestone to give reference to the area. Large concrete planters with native grasses. Those are going to be another enclosure element, but also if you didn't want to do something as intense as native grass, you could do seasonal plantings and switch them out from time to time. Also trees and shrubs, of course, to help with that heat island effect and provide habitat and environmental benefits. And then enhanced paving as visual accent. Multimodal hub, we want to have space for Chattanooga e-bike stations, bike racks, pedestrian safety measures like adding sidewalks, speed tables, and hawk signals where appropriate, and then strengthen connections to local destination points. And of course, public art. So I'm going to let Richard speak to how kaleidoscopes are going to fit in with our work, and I'll turn it over to you now, sir.
On the public art part, the main part, when you look through a kaleidoscope, you see the design you see is called a mandala. It's lots of color, and by adding the color to the different bus stops, it's more attractive, it's more inviting to people, and more enjoyable when they're there. So the plexiglass panels, instead of just being clear panels, we would take colored plexiglass, cut it, and make it look like the mandala looking through a kaleidoscope. and as the sun or light shone through it, it would project that onto the different areas of the bus stop to make it look more attractive, make it look more inviting to people. On this one is a prism-type kaleidoscope that you put into the ceiling, and when you look up, you would actually, even in the daylight, you would look like you were looking into space. And these are made metal on the outside, plexiglass on the front to make them more durable, so rather than you using glass that could be broken very easily. But this would be high enough to where you would look up at it and it would just catch your eye in the top as a different view. And then we also decided that in some of them we might be able to use freestanding on a post, do a kaleidoscope of iconic things around Chattanooga, do a Sea Rock City Birds barn and put a kaleidoscope inside of it. The front would be plexiglass. It would be on a Lazy Susan so you could turn it around so different people could look at it. We could do Tennessee Aquarium, we could do a Carter bus, we could do all sorts of different art according to what area of town you were in. And again, trying to make it more attractive, trying to make it more interactive, and also if you've got kids with you, it would help occupy the kids while they were doing it. These would be made very securely. The barns would be made out of wood with the kaleidoscopes on the inside, plexiglass on the outside, so that they would hold up in weather, would hold up with use on things like that. But again, it would be one that you would look into and would see different things when you saw inside. They're stationary. They're called kaleidoscopes instead of kaleidoscopes because they don't have an outside sail. It's just what you see when you look into the mirrors inside. But just making the bus stops more attractive, more inviting, and give you something to just, the color makes it more, more of a happy place to be.
So these sites have to be here, and we have to use them. And they need to be made into functional spaces that are open and welcome to the community. They need to be pocket parks, and they need to be for all people. So I think we can definitely make that happen if we all work together and find a way. That's it. Questions? Thoughts? Comments? Okay. The comment that Teresa made was that this would be a really nice addition to the local community in St. Elmo because of the adjacencies, the laundromat, the food city itself, the car wash, places where the laundromat specifically where you have to wait, so you might as well have a nice wait to do it. Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am. You are absolutely right about that. The question or the comment was addressing the vegetation at the site and maintenance concerns with the vegetation at the site. Would it go into disrepair eventually because there's not a ton of city maintenance that's going to happen? That's a really great question. You're right about the trees. Obviously, they grow up and they're not going to be bushed out or anything. I'm a big proponent of using native vegetation, so especially the grasses and stuff that are in the planters. Those are going to have year-round visual interest and would only really need to be cut back like once a year. One really nice thing about native grasses is that when they go dormant, they kind of retain their structure. They go kind of yellow, but they also have habitat value for wildlife, and they give a really cool rustling effect too. So that'll have some aural, like auditory screening for the surroundings as well. As far as the shrubs, you just want to make sure and choose vegetation that's going to be scale appropriate for the site and isn't going to overgrow. So as landscape architects, Brad and I, that's something we definitely think about in all of our designs. Good question. Who's maintaining it? Carta? Oh, sorry, she's said who is maintaining the site?
One thing that we were looking at with these two sites specifically, because they're the public right-of-way, the city's right-of-way, and that's why these acrylic bus stop boxes are so small and so jammed up against the street, is because they're all on public right-of-way. That was one of the questions in our mid-presentation update. Was, you know, we were all trying to figure out why everything was just jammed up right there. It's on right-of-way. But one of the things I think for the future, as far as something to think outside the box, is, and we can use both of our sites for examples, is looking at, you know, public-private partnerships as far as maintenance on these facilities. Because, I mean, who's using these facilities? Is 99% of them are going to be using the shopping center's area, all their businesses. So they have customers that are coming in and out there. I mean, I could guarantee you less than 1% are using the car wash if they're taking the bus to that bus stop. But if you can get that partnership to work, they have an invested interest in making sure their clientele and their customers coming to their sites are happy with, you know, the transition. Just like you want to have a decent ride going if you're taking your car wherever you go. You want to make sure, I mean, especially now in the summer, your car has air conditioning, or you at least got some good music to listen to. And same thing with the Parkridge site. I'm going to take a wild guess that 70–80% are patients, employees, family members coming to visit patients. And so there's an invested interest in there, and that's a little bit why we have some expanded areas outside of, you know, really with the Food City site, we don't even have any right-of-way. I mean, it's, as you know there, it's just a sign that's there.
It's just an access road that goes through too. It's not like a dedicated city street passing by.
And so we're just looking at, you know, thinking outside the box as far as how this could really use, and to think of a different way that, you know, really everyone citywide can be looking at these spaces, and not just as a, you know, as I mentioned in the first meeting, was they're just things we have to do. You know, create a sense of place for this. Everybody's got a vested interest in what this looks like. And so as far as the maintenance, yeah, I mean, right now, the only thing that's written down is the city's going to maintain it. It doesn't mean that that's what it has to be.
Yes. Sure, you want to come talk? Can you do it in the mic though, just so? Please. No. Okay.
They want to hear.
With
Oh, feedback. Feedback right in front of the speaker.
yeah, sorry. So with that in mind, I think what Aaron's touching on is just thinking of transit stops and our transit system just as any essential infrastructure in our city. I think everyone here would realize and would admit that that's really important, or else we wouldn't be here. So I work for the city. I'm an urban planner. So it's an essential part of our urban fabric, as we all know. But thinking of it just like we think about sidewalks are essential for our community. Roads and street trees are essential to our community. So are bus stops, transit routes, and bike routes. Like all of these forms of transportation are essential for our urban fabric success for everyone, and viability for everyone, comfort for everyone. So I think that's what Aaron's touching on. That's what y'all are touching on. But it's looking at it as an essential component, just like we require street trees and sidewalks in our city code to be installed when sites are new and redeveloped. We need to think through bus stops and transit stops the same way. It's essential infrastructure.
Yep. So yeah, and thank you for that clarification. Thank you for that comment. I think that is spot on. We need policy level recommendations to make that stuff happen. And just like on a site, if a developer doesn't feel like, preserving X amount of trees, they then have to pay money to the city into a fund in order to. Oh, you don't have that anymore? Okay, never mind. Well, some places do have that. But pay money into a fund where someone else does the maintenance. So if the developer themselves don't want to handle the maintenance of something like this, maybe they pay into some CARTA or transportation thing to where someone else could maintain it. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not doing the policy part of this, but policy needs to happen to. Thanks. Absolutely. The question was, are we going to put trash cans in this place? There will definitely be trash cans. Who will maintain those trash cans? It remains to be seen, but someone will come by and empty them, I promise you. The trash cans, we will make sure and choose something, a product that goes with the rest of our design elements. We don't want to just have some standard old 1980s concrete trash can sitting out there with our sleek transit shelter. The question was, do we have measures for knowing the bus schedule essentially at our site in real time? And yeah, that's something we've thought about. That kind of goes along with the fully wired shelter. part of the cool thing about these shelters too is it's really easy to mount stuff to it. So we could very easily mount a screen there that is possibly interactive, but definitely shows like a map of the transit system, what's coming in when, where, maybe a countdown even to when the next bus is about to arrive. So yeah, that's a great question, and that would certainly be something that we could work to include. Someone over here. Yes. The question was, are these designs replicable in various places throughout Chattanooga, specifically where existing ones are? What both teams were asked to do was to create a kit of parts that could be deployed pretty much anywhere. And so I think we've both worked to make our designs modular and that they can be configured in a way that will work with various site conditions. So obviously, right out here, we're really close to the road. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what our design move would be for there, but obviously our shelter would be a significantly smaller footprint. We wouldn't have like a major pocket park situation right there, but we would incorporate many of the elements that we're talking about. And we could certainly soften it up with vegetation even in that small area too, because we're using planters. And yes, right there in the back. Those were two really good points. The first one was, has any thought been given to a transit ticketing kiosk or something in this location, much like you'd see at like the DC Metro, or I don't know, using like the Metro card or the Charm card or something like that, just having a loadable card or a day pass that you can plug in. So that's a really good idea. That wasn't something that I had explored, but I think in any of these scenarios, we could certainly consider incorporating something like that. But once again, that would require buy-in from the higher powers that be on how they want to run their transit system. The other point was, what measures are we taking for those who might need audio or visual cues about when buses are coming? So incorporating things like Braille or maybe a speaker that's announcing the bus time. And I think that's a great idea for sure. Yes, sir.
I have to say it. Let's just make the entire transit system free for everybody. That's what real public transit should be, and we can do it. The economics are very simple. It can happen in Chattanooga, so I don't want us to see a kiosk. I want to see a free transit system.
A free transit system would be really wonderful. And yeah, we should keep being squeaky wheels and see if we can get that here. Yes, ma'am. A traffic what? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that idea. That's such a cool idea. She said that Erin's idea actually gave her this idea, but using the transit stop as like, she's a teacher, using the transit stops as like a field trip in themselves, just taking the kids around to view the public art at those, and also normalize using public transportation. That's so cool. One thing that came into mind during your presentation as well was in Athens, all of the bus stops are different, like art-looking bus stops too. So that is kind of how Erin was saying, like, we could do different things based on what community we're in or what location we're in, just to kind of like vary design throughout the city. So very cool idea. I love it. Yes. That is a really good point. I would love to have water and a bathroom at these places. Unfortunately, the bathroom I don't think is in the cards for us, but water might be a different story. A lot of these are within the public realm, so it could potentially be possible to have water stations there, bottle refill stations. Anybody else? Anything else from you guys? All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Eric then.
Let's have another round of applause for the teams. They did a great job. Croy and Open Architecture Practice and Range, thank you guys so much. You did an incredible job. I just want to acknowledge it's great to see some familiar faces, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm Eric Myers. I'm the Executive Director of the Chattanooga Design Studio. So we launched this program, and you might be sitting there wondering, because I didn't do a good job at the intro of saying, why? Why does this program exist? Why are we doing this today? Why do we assemble such great friends today for this wonderful conversation? It's twofold. Really, when we can design and challenge ourselves and design freely outside of the vacuum of budget constraint, and really project constraints that are timeline driven most of the time, we can really dream big. And that's really what this is about, is to start to dream big, because if you're looking around at what's going on federally, statewide, and in our local community, there are potentially a lot of dollars coming to our community. It may not be tomorrow. It will likely not be tomorrow. It'll be within the next couple of years. But a lot of the infrastructure dialogue that's happening right now at the federal government is about improving transit for communities like ours. And so it's important that we have discussions like this over the design table together to figure out what works and what doesn't work, right? And hold on to those things that work and carry them forward without the pressures of a project demand, a federal budget, a local budget, right? And that's why. The other why, which is really important to me, is to put heavy advocacy and importance on options for transit. It's important, even if you're not a transit rider today and you've never possibly ridden a bus, it's important for you as a citizen to have options, right? That's what makes vibrant communities, is have options about how you get to where you're going from point A to point B. And that's what true equity means. That's really freedom for our community. And so that's part of the why. And so in closure, I just want to say thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. And thank you for participating. Keep in touch. We're going to encapsulate these projects on this project website. It's called Chat en Route, so CHATTEN-ROUTE.org. Follow along there, and we'll also announce further programs with the Chat en Route project as we go along. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Rakita Dotley, our city councilman for District 7, has showed up today. Rakita, do you have any comments? Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's very important. I appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Have a great day.